The first snow of December had begun to settle over the quiet town of Maplewood, Vermont, blanketing the streets in white and softening every sound. Inside the small coffee shop on Main Street, the air was warm and smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon. Mark Donovan, the shop's owner, wiped down the counter with slow, practiced motions, glancing occasionally at the frosted window panes that shimmered with reflections of Christmas lights. It was a calm morning, the kind he liked best, until the bell above the door chimed, letting in a rush of cold air and the smallest visitor he had ever seen. The girl could not have been more than 8, bundled in a pink knitted hat and a coat 2 sizes too big. Her boots were dusted with snow, and she clutched a brown paper bag tightly in her mittened hands. Mark blinked in surprise and quickly set down the cloth. "Good morning," he said gently, unsure if she was lost. The little girl's nose was red from the cold, and her eyes darted nervously around the cozy shop before settling on him with quiet determination. "Hi, sir," she said softly. "My dad usually comes here." Mark leaned on the counter, curiosity piqued. "Your dad?" he asked kindly. "You must mean Tom, the baker from Elm Street?" The girl nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. My dad is sick today, so I came instead." She lifted the paper bag a little higher, as though proving her purpose. Mark stepped forward, smiling. "Well, that's very brave of you, sweetheart. You came through all that snow by yourself?" She shook her head and pointed toward the window. "My neighbor, Mrs. Grant, walked me halfway. She said I knew the rest of the way." Mark chuckled softly, impressed. "That was very responsible of you. Can I ask your name?" The girl smiled shyly. Emily, the name fit her, simple, warm and earnest. He crouched to her level and took the bag from her carefully, as though it was something precious. The aroma hit him instantly, freshly baked blueberry muffins, still warm enough to fog the inside of the bag. "You bake these yourself?" he asked, a teasing glimmer in his eyes. Emily giggled. "No, sir. Dad mixed them last night before he got sick. I just put them in the oven this morning. He told me the timer goes ding when they're ready." Mark laughed, charmed by her seriousness. He opened the bag, peered inside, and whistled softly. The muffins were perfect, golden tops, just the right amount of crumble. "These look amazing," he said. "You tell your dad he's trained a real professional baker." Emily's cheeks flushed with pride. "Thank you, sir." "He always says good baking needs good patience." Mark nodded in agreement, remembering Tom's usual advice and the man's easy smile whenever he delivered the weekly batch. It touched him deeply that the little girl had taken it upon herself to keep that promise, no matter her size or the weather. He reached into the register, pulled out a few dollar bills, and held them out to her. For the muffins, of course. But Emily shook her head quickly, her braids swinging beneath the pink hat. "Dad said not to take money until next week. He said that's the rule." Her tone was polite but firm, the kind of tone that leaves no room for argument. Mark froze for a second, then laughed again. "You sound just like your father," he said. "All right then. I'll owe him." Emily nodded solemnly, as if she were recording the transaction in some invisible ledger only she could see. Outside, snowflakes swirled against the window like tiny white feathers. Mark poured her a small cup of hot chocolate, topped with whipped cream and a single marshmallow. "On the house," he said, sliding it toward her. Emily's eyes widened with delight, and she cupped the warm mug between her mittens, sipping carefully. "Thank you," she murmured. "Dad loves your coffee. He says it makes his mornings better." Mark felt a pang of warmth in his chest. "That means a lot," he said quietly. "Tell him his muffins do the same for me." Emily smiled, her eyes brightening like a spark catching light. They chatted a little while longer about her school, her dog named Pepper, and how she wanted to bake cookies for Santa this year. Each answer came with the candid honesty only children possess. Mark found himself leaning closer, completely charmed by her earnestness. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed hearing such simple, innocent conversation in his busy days. When she finally set down the empty mug, she adjusted her hat and announced with quiet resolve, "I should go now. Dad needs his medicine, and I promised Mom I wouldn't stay long." Mark walked her to the door, reluctant to see her leave. The bell chimed again as the cold air rushed in. Emily tightened her scarf and stepped outside, the snow crunching softly beneath her boots. Mark watched as she walked away, the pink hat bobbing against the white landscape, until she turned the corner and disappeared behind a curtain of snowflakes. For a long moment, he stood there, hands in his pockets, feeling something between admiration and melancholy. It wasn't just her courage that touched him. It was the way she carried her father's care and responsibility as though it were her own. Without complaint or hesitation, back behind the counter, he opened the paper bag once more and took out one of the muffins. It was still faintly warm. The first bite melted on his tongue, rich with blueberries and a hint of vanilla. It tasted of home, of comfort, of love baked into every crumb. He smiled to himself and whispered, "Good job, kid." For the rest of that morning, every time the bell jingled and a customer entered, he found himself glancing at the door, half expecting to see that little pink hat again. Somehow the shop felt a bit brighter, even against the grey of the storm outside. When the afternoon came and the snow piled high against the window, Mark placed one of Emily's muffins on a small plate by the register, as he often did with treats meant for friends. The customers who asked about it got only a smile in reply. To Mark, that muffin was more than a delivery. It was a reminder of resilience, of small hands doing big things, of kindness that asked for nothing in return. And somewhere out there, he imagined, a little girl was helping her father rest, dreaming, perhaps, of the next batch she would bake when he was well again.